Hi, everybody. Thanks, Drew. So, yeah, what I'm going to do, because it's quite a lot of information, so I'm going to rather just go through the different products and compare them one with the other. I think that might be helpful to distributors. And then also show you how to set up perhaps a way of comparing the products with others that are on the market, because that's sort of a question that seems to come up quite a lot. So let's just work through it as we go along. Some of the slides are quite copy dense, but I'll work through them with you. So basically, as Drew said, we're pretty much made of protein, and proteins in general are composed of amino acids. So if we eat protein, for example, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down as we digest it, and what we're going to do is break it down into individual amino acids. So that piece of chicken that you eat eventually gets broken down into the building blocks, if you like, of that piece of chicken. And then the body then says, okay, well, now I've got these building blocks, and it puts them back together again, depending on where the body actually needs those proteins and for whatever function. And so you'll see that their functions are very diverse. We tend to think of them as, we tend in NeoLife to talk about repair and renewal, but in fact, some of those proteins will be used for basic structure, like bones or skin or hair or teeth. That's a structural protein. Others will be those that transport some of the other foods that we eat, perhaps through the cell membrane, for example, or might transport the iron around the body. Enzymes are catalysts. They enable things to happen. They make processes happen. So they are made of protein. And then messengers, those would be things like hormones, for example. They're given instructions from the brain, and the brain says, go and do this because that is happening. So you can see that they're everywhere in the body, and they're very diverse and extremely important. Obviously that's something, they're called macronutrients, macro meaning that we need them in fairly large amounts. And so other macronutrients that we eat would be carbohydrates and fats. And then the micronutrients are our vitamins and minerals and the smaller substances or nutrients that we eat. So protein is one of our important macronutrients. And just to give some, some perspective on how much we need to take in on a daily basis, 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So what that means is if you were 65 kilograms, for example, you'd multiply that weight by 0.8, and that would give you an idea of how much protein you should be taking in for the day. It's generally based on our ideal body weight, but this is just a rule of thumb that we would work like this. However, even though this is the standard internationally, it's pretty much accepted that the RDA, or this sort of value, is really the minimal amount of protein that is required. It's not, and I think that's true of many of the recommendations that we get given for macro and micronutrients, that this is just to prevent deficiencies, really. It's not really for optimal health. And a lot of research is showing that really we need more than 0.8 grams in general. This is for adults now. So I would suggest that if, let's say, you're 65 kilograms, you can say, let's multiply that by 1 gram instead of 80% of that, and say, I need 65 grams of protein. That's kind of a rule of thumb. I think that would be a lot easier if you're just trying to work out quickly what you would require. But obviously, those requirements do change if one, for example, is a sports person. Then, depending on your type of sport, you might need up to even 1.5 grams per kilogram. So you'd multiply that 65 by 1.5 to get how much you need. If someone has been unwell or had surgery or where their need for repair and renewal is higher for that period of time, then that 0.8 would be definitely going up to 1, if not 1.2. So these numbers that I'm throwing around, you multiply your weight by that number, and it gives you an idea of your protein. So to be safe, I think just multiply your weight. Say 65 kilograms, I need 65 grams of protein. That would be the way of working it out. Okay, so I said I would tabulate things because I think they'll probably be easier to have a look at. So Nutrishake was one of our original products in terms of our protein shakes. Now we talk about protein shakes. Remember, we don't just have protein in our shakes simply because we know that all these macronutrients and micronutrients work together. Our bodies are not just protein. They need carbohydrates in order to work or get energy. You need some fats, the right type of fats to make sure that these things get into the cells. So for distributors, you'd get that understanding that we put more than just protein in our shakes, whereas a lot of companies might just sell you a protein shake. But ours are, we talk about it in terms of protein because it's a high quality protein and it is a fairly dominant ingredient in the products. So Nutrishake was one of our original products that we brought into the market quite a few years ago, but it's really a family favorite and probably not one that we'd move off the shelf very quickly. But it is one of our original products. So when we compare it now with something like NeoLife Shake, which came out more recently, there's some more bells and whistles, if you like, that we've attached to NeoLife Shake. So just to kind of go through it and give you some sense of a comparison, not because we're saying one is better than the other, but sometimes one doesn't always look at them side by side. So I thought that might be quite helpful. So if we look at the protein serving, we're going to have a bit more protein per serving than we have a Nutrishake. But bear in mind that NeoLife Shake is, again, because it's perhaps a more modern product, we've managed to put this product together. It tastes like a milkshake, but you actually mix it with water. So that sort of is one of the more modern components of the product. So with water, it provides you with 18 grams of protein. And Nutrishake actually tastes a lot better. I think most people agree, but not necessarily everyone. It tastes really nice with milk. That was how it was originally designed. So when you add the milk to the Nutrishake for your portion, you're actually adding another 8 grams of protein anyway. So actually, effectively, portion for portion, you provide 18 grams of protein because the milk is bringing some to the party with a Nutrishake. The sources are the same, soya and dairy, because they are providing us with such a broad spectrum of these amino acids. Remember, we talked protein and the building blocks or how we measure it. We managed to get a good spread of the 22 that we want to have in our product because they're the 22 important nutritional amino acids that we need. And that way we can get that diversity with those 2 ingredients. I'm mentioning branched chain amino acids because it's something that we've started to introduce into our lingo in the shake market because of more specifically because of the sports performance protein. But these are simply a group of amino acids that are called branched chain, not to be complicated, other than actually what they're describing is their structure. They've got little branches on the chemical structure, if you were to look at it on paper, as it were. And so that's why they're called branched chain amino acids. Nothing fancy about that other than that term. And we've got them actually in all our products, but in fairly small amounts in Nutrishake, simply because we weren't focusing on them. And then in NeoLife Shake, we've simply increased the concentration slightly because they have a very strong affinity for muscles, keeping muscles well energized, retaining the muscle tissue and protein, and also helping to build. But just bear in mind that they form part of the 22. It's just a name given to some of those, a little cluster of them, of the 22 amino acids. All of them have got some little structural differences, and they are then categorized. But we don't talk about that normally, but the branched chain amino acids are being talked about out there in the marketplace. So that's why I'm mentioning it to you. The GR2 control, I think many of you are familiar with this, your glycemic response control, which is a technology we introduced quite a few years ago and very much ahead of its time and very innovative. And that's a way of determining, if you like, how the product behaves when you swallow it. It's important not just about what's in a product or what's in a food, but what it does when it gets inside the body into the bloodstream. And I think more and more we're starting to talk about that sort of thing now with our new botanical balance. How does our body actually respond when the food actually arrives in its digested form in the bloodstream? So we were already starting to look at that when we were doing Nutrishake, but we actually have done tests now specifically on NeoLife Shake to say we actually know how this product behaves, what it stimulates in our body when we actually swallow it. So that's what glycemic control is all about, regulating predominantly what the sugar response is. But that's very important for our general well-being and certainly from a sporting point of view. We talked quite recently about fiber, and when we brought out our all-natural fiber product. So 5 grams of fiber in the NeoLife Shake is still a very significant amount, because what are we looking for? We're looking for about 25 grams or so as a minimum. So 5 is 1/5 of that in literally in one delicious shake. In Nutrishake, it wasn't something that we were concentrating on, so you can see it hasn't got a lot of fiber, so it's not a fiber-rich product. But because the fiber is in the NeoLife shake, and again, it's just moving, as I say, from the time that Nutrishake was introduced into more modern times and also more knowledge that we understand and how to put these things together. We've added the fiber, and it has an influence, obviously, on digestion. In other words, the regularity of our digestive system and therefore elimination. It helps to control sugar because it stimulates, it helps to control the way the food is actually released into the bloodstream, the actual time that it takes. It also helps to take cholesterol out of the body from the digestive tract. And of course, because it's satisfying, it fills us for longer, it has a part to play in weight loss. So you can just see by just adding a bit of extra fiber, it made a huge difference to the dimensions of this product. So not to take anything away from Nutrishake, but just to show you how we've actually progressed along the way. 25 different vitamins and minerals in NeoLife shake. And then we've got 14 in Nutrishake. It's not specifically a mineral-rich product. It's actually got more vitamins than it has minerals. So I'm pointing out, not from a negative point of view, but just so that you're aware when you're actually introducing a product to somebody, but be aware that Nutrishake doesn't have, for example, any iron in it or any zinc. It has got calcium, because that comes along with the natural ingredients that are present in Nutrishake. But we haven't made it a mineral-rich product. It's vitamin-rich, but it's not a mineral-based product. So you were looking for a diversity of nutrients and basically a complete meal, then you would favor NeoLife shake. So it's got 25 different vitamins and minerals represented. And as I said, it mixes instantly with water, which is progress. I think many of you will know that way back in the 1960s, when protein was being talked about and people were realizing the value of getting a good quality protein, not just eating food just because it had protein in it. We were one of the pioneers of not just powdering of the protein from food sources, but making it, or instantizing it, as we call it. In other words, you put that powder into a liquid and it dissolves and mixes immediately, instantly. So we have simply perfected that along the way. But we were pioneers of this many, many years prior to bringing out NeoLife shake. So I hope that just gives you, at a glance, a distinction between the two. Nutrishake is delicious. I mean, with the milk, it's got 3 different flavors. It's really delicious. Kids absolutely love it, but lots of people love it. But as I say, and many children will benefit from having this as they could have it as a breakfast, or they could have it between, let's say, school and a sport event that they had to have, or when they get back from school and they're really hungry. It's a really super thing to have in the house. Brings milk onto the menu, which often has been, lost to many kids these days. And so that's got nutritional value in itself. But NeoLife shake is more of a complete meal, and it can be used, therefore, in place of a meal for an adult, for example, on a weight loss program. So a little bit of the difference between the two there. Okay, here now, what I've done here is just to show you how to compare perhaps the product. And because I get asked this question quite often, and I think many of you do too, how does it compare with this product or that product? And so what I've just done here is taken a list of all the features and benefits that are available to us all, whether it's in the catalog or on the website or on the fast facts, and simply listed them. And then when you pick up any other product that you want to compare with, it's actually not such an onerous thing. It actually means, have they got the things that NeoLife shake has got? And so this example that I've just put here is a competitor, and I'm go through literally all the different components or features of our product. I won't go through every single one, but some of them that are a little different from others. You start to realize that, in fact, the gaps and the question marks and the no-nos, if you like, show themselves up. So you don't have to have any special skill to actually do this, except perhaps a basic template. And so you'll start to see the sources or the amount of protein, but you also see the protein quality. How many amino acids have they got? I mean, this one, for example, mentions the 9, which would be one would assume, the essential amino acids, because remember, from our food, there are some amino acids that we have to choose the right foods in order to get them. Our body simply cannot make them, inside it. There are 22 that we need, but there are 9 that we have to get from our food. So that 9 probably on the competitor's product are the essential ones, but they haven't listed them, so we don't really know if they're actually there at all. We have 22 all listed. ProtoGuard process there again is a feature to talk about. Remember I said way back in the 1960s, we were pioneering protein shakes. And one of the things that we were pioneering and looking at and improving and perfecting was the way we treated the protein. And that's in fact why we make such a big deal about 22 amino acids being present. Because if you simply just work with the food and you heat it or you mix it around, you're actually going to lose some of the quality. You might lose some of those amino acids or the potency of them. So it's something that we've really focused on by making sure that we look after the quality of the protein sources that we're using. And so that we don't denature any of its natural components, because remember, those proteins, whether they're from soya, whether they're from milk, whatever source, are made of amino acids. And we want to make sure that we retain the value of those food sources in our product. So when I put a question mark on the other one, they don't have a ProtoGuard process. So there's already a talking point or a gap in that product. The scoring system, this is just it's called the protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. It's quite a mouthful. But what it's really doing is establishing the amino acid content of the food source that you've used in the final product, and then rating its availability and its digestibility. So it is a mathematical equation, but it is based on the fact that we look after those amino acids. In other words, we know how much is in there because we've looked after it and we've tested it. And then the product gets tested per amino acid from the different food sources to see how much is in there. And a factor of digestibility is put into this equation, and it comes up with a number. Now, it's considered in the marketplace or in science that 1 is what you would want. If you hit 1, well, then they don't test usually anymore. They say, okay, you're pretty good. But we don't do that. So we test our products for every single amino acid. And this 1.34, for example, is probably the highest score that we get. But then we have to obviously take an average of all the different amino acids. So we make sure that we find the actual number, not just the fact that we hit 1. So we get a tick next to our name. So I know it's a bit of a complicated story, but it's just that this is based on talking about the quality of the product. And so that's why we are happy to actually go mention ours, even though it's greater than 1, we want to know the exact amount of how much greater it is. But you'll see on the competitor, not stated. So that just adds a question mark. The glycemic control technology that we actually brought into innovated, and we also tested for. Not only do we know that we can glycemically control, in other words, we control the behavior of the product when we swallow it. What does it do to our sugar levels? We know that it's slow and controlled. We've tested that. For example, the other competitive product isn't even mentioning glycemic control, and so therefore not even tested. So there again is a question mark. And that question mark is simply, I haven't had to go and look anywhere. It's simply, they haven't got it on their product label. So we have to, or on their website, because you can also check that out. And therefore that's lacking in that product. I talked about the fiber, 5 grams against 2 grams. You can work that one out. No GMOs. Again, they haven't stated, so there's a question mark. They're not going to talk about it. Maybe they are there and there. I can't vouch for that, and I can't say it's there, but it's a question mark. Do they have any gluten in the product? Yes, they state that they have. So, you can weigh the one up against the other. Things like artificial colors, artificial flavorings, sweeteners, preservatives, for example. That's such a problem in our modern life and our modern food supply at the moment that it's a big deal if you don't have those in your product. So we're very proud about that, and we're very specific when they don't exist. So we look for that in other people's products. So there again, I'm going to weigh that up and say, okay, I don't want artificial colorings and flavorings. If just looking at some of the vitamins, without going into too much detail, we state the 25 and we list them. This particular product says up to 21. So what does that mean? Has it got 19? Has it got 20? Has it got 12? It doesn't engender any sort of confidence. And just in this particular one, again, since I was going into detail, these were the ones that were lacking compared to the NeoLife one. So can you see, you don't have to be clever to do this. It's purely about having what you know, what is stated about NeoLife Shake, and simply putting the competitive products lack or similarities together. The Neoplex concentrate, just to remind you, that's about our our vitamin C component. That's saying that we've got everything that you would find in a citrus fruit, except the water. And so in other words, those are combining food ingredients to help the digestibility and the availability of the vitamin C, particularly in this product. So you can see here, it's already starting to show you how many little extra special things there are in this product, just because they exist. And it's only because they're lacking in other people's products that you realize what it is you actually have. And for digestion, we've got enzymes to help proteins and help the actual meal to be digested more effectively. And we tell you exactly what the enzyme is and where it comes from. So we've got papain from pawpaw, for example, whereas this other product simply says pawpaw powder. Now that's, people might think, oh, it's got some pawpaw in it, but it's not really telling you anything. So there again, it's lacking. But a big deal also about NeoLife Shake is that, again, not only do we know how the product behaves and we know the score of the product and how its quality, we've actually tested it. We've put it out there in the scientific community and tested it on humans and also published that research and to show that this is how the product behaves. It is a full meal replacement. It did assist with weight loss. So people were using it and they did lose weight. Very interestingly, you can look up this actually in the Lifestyle magazine. It's 2015 is actually when we published it. It showed that it reduced fat percentage. Now that's quite a challenge. People sometimes they do lose weight on the scale. But that actually could be they're losing water or they could be losing muscle mass. And so their actual physical weight goes down. What we're really trying to achieve is losing fat. That's what we want to achieve. We don't want to lose muscle and we don't want to lose water. And this particular product significantly reduced the fat content, which is actually of the body, which is really quite something to achieve. It's not easy to do on a normal diet. It reduced there, of course, the body mass index, which is the weight-height ratio. You would expect that to happen. And also, interestingly, in these particular subjects that tested the product on, it lowered cholesterol. So that was an added benefit because if we have weight to lose, it affects our cholesterol levels, it affects our blood pressure. We've been talking about that recently. It upsets our sugar levels. So you start to see this product ticks a whole lot of boxes. We know the behavior of the product in terms of our sugar levels. We're starting to lose some weight, which is of value to all aspects of our health. And this test, independently of NeoLife, actually showed that the product reduced the cholesterol levels. A lot of that's probably got to do with the fiber in the product. So 5 grams of fiber is a significant amount of fiber. And when we put it all together, you really have a winner. So I hope that's just showing you that if you are someone who gets asked or wants to know about other people's products, set yourself up a template just of all these features and benefits that you have at your disposal and that are true about the product, and simply slot other people's in and you'll start. The gaps will show themselves. Right, then I want you to talk a bit more detail about the sports performance protein because that's a newer addition to the family. And so perhaps some of you haven't used it, maybe you're not familiar with it yet, or you might think maybe you don't need to use it. So this is for sport-focused people, for active people, just normal active people, and of course people who are in a specific sport. So don't feel like you have to be, sort of a sports person or be in a competitive sport. If you're just active, going to the gym, just being, more physically active than the average, this is going to be a product that's going to be helpful for you. So I've gone into a little bit more detail with this one. Again, it's got the 22 amino acids. That's important. So that's a kind of a given with NeoLife shakes. But what we've done here is we've got what we call muscle match protein. So we've chosen sources of protein and the amounts of the protein to more similarly match what our muscles are made of. Remember, we talked about our proteins doing all sorts of different things in our bodies, and some of the structural protein would be part of our muscle tissue. In fact, a very big part of it. So we have blended our amino acid combinations to match, will be more similar to our muscle, because that's actually where this product is focused, more on our muscle tissue and building the strength within our muscles. So each serving is prepared with milk, okay, which is Nutrishake was prepared with milk. We're suggesting that you prepare this one with milk because you're going to get added value from the milk, and you're going to get the result you want. So we, together with the milk, we provide here 26 grams of protein. Now you remember Nutrishake was 10 portion, And when you added the milk, you got 18, and NeoLife shake with the water was 18. And this one has got 26 grams of protein. So that's slightly more protein, which is what we're trying to achieve, to build something more. And so let's have a look a little bit at this protein. And what is, as I say, go into a little bit more detail in this particular product, because we talk about whey protein. And the proteins from milk are whey protein and casein. Okay, those are the two main proteins. There are others, less minor ones, but your casein is probably 80% of the milk, and then the whey is, let's say, 20%, just to round it off. So whey is like the liquid part of the milk. So if milk were to go sour, for example, I'm sure you can picture it. Can you eventually get sort of solid bits in that milk? And those are the curds, and the liquid part of that process is the whey. So that's what the whey protein is from the dairy source. And the reason why we've chosen whey, and it is something that, of course, is being talked out in the marketplace, so you need to be familiar with that term. People will say, well, has it got whey protein? Yes, it has got whey protein. And look at there again, there's the branched chain amino acids I was talking about, because those are the ones that a sports person, and particularly someone who's doing resistance training, although most sports people, they do what they call cross training. Even a runner is likely to go to the gym to strengthen his muscles, because that enables him to run better. So the muscle has these branched chain amino acids, and muscle have an affinity for one another. So the whey protein is the source of the dairy protein that we use that provides these branched chain amino acids. So that's why we're talking about them. And then the numbers come into play. So people start to ask you how much, and that's how people compare one product with the other. And I'll show you a comparison just now. So branched chain amino acids, they're branched because of their structure. They are part of the 22. And there are basically 3 branched chain amino acids. So of the 22, 3 of them are branched chain. They have an affinity for muscle tissue. Remember, lean tissue is muscle tissue or protein tissue. And one of the most important of these 3 branched chain amino acids is called leucine. And I think these, if you're in this sort of market, then it's worth just being familiar with these terms, because that's the sort of thing people are comparing. And that's the sort of thing they're likely to ask you on the run, as it were. Because leucine in particular has a very strong affinity and influence on muscle tissue for the regeneration of the tissue, for retaining the muscle tissue so that you don't lose it. So that's where the whey protein comes in, and the branched chain amino acids. But also something that we have, and other products do have, but not sometimes quite to this degree, are glutamine and glutamic acid. And these you'll see on your list of amino acids, but these are not essential. In fact, the body can actually manufacture them from all sorts of other amino acids and proteins that we eat. But in fact, glutamine is probably one of the most abundant amino acids around the body. Yet when the body's under stress, it's less efficient at actually making the things it normally can. And it becomes less efficient at making something like glutamine, which is very important, as you can see, for your immune system, for your cellular metabolism, for the nervous system. And in fact, it actually lives mostly in the gut. And we've talked a lot about our gut and probiotics, and we know that our immune system, 70% of it actually is in our gut. So if glutamine is not being manufactured very well, then obviously our immune system is going to be affected. And the reason why it's in a product like this is because if someone is doing an endurance event, or perhaps really is very, very active in their sport, their body actually, even though it's fit, is still under stress. It's still under more pressure, if you like, than the average person. So it's possible that glutamine isn't being manufactured as well as it could be, simply because there's a level of stress to the body. And so we don't want to compromise the immune system and cellular activity. So we've simply put more of, remember, it's one of the 22 amino acids, in fact, there are 2 of them are. So of these here, we've got 5 that I'm talking about. 5 of them are of the 22, but these are specifically ones that we have focused on because they make a big difference to the person who is the sports person and who needs a benefit from a product like this. So I hope that's making sense, but so you're starting to see that there's actually much more focus, and it's much more concentrated on muscle tissue and sporting events and demands of the body. That's why this is called a performance protein. And just so that you are aware, and it's very important for performance, is that we have also glycemic response control technology, the one that I talked about in NeoLife Shake. We know how this product behaves. We know that it doesn't spike your sugar, because for a sporting event, you don't want your sugar to be elevated and then to be dropped and then you will be deflated and not have energy. So we want to make sure that the sugars or the energy that is provided by the product, in fact, is sustained. And that's exactly what a sports person wants. They don't want to be messed around and up 1 minute and down the next. So I think performance protein is very apt. When do we use it? Well, some people can use it because it has not just protein in it. So while it has an affinity for muscle tissue, you've got to have energy in order to do the exercise. Your muscle itself has to have energy in order to be able to pick up a weight or do whatever activity you ask of it. So that's why we have a combination of carbohydrates, a little bit of fat, and a whole lot of vitamins and minerals. So you can use this prior to the actual workout to give you the energy to enable you to actually do the work. But very important is for after the workout, particularly if you're doing resistance training. At any sporting event, but if we're talking about people who are looking for muscle in particular, you would want to use this for recovery. It has, as I say, a very strong affinity for actual muscle tissue. So it will help to build muscle and it will help to repair, because in your actual lifting of a weight, you're actually putting a huge demand on that muscle. And in some cases, depending on what you're doing and how much more of your exercise you're doing, some people pick up really heavy weights. They actually, in some ways, do a little bit of damage to the muscle. And not excessive, but the muscle really needs some help to repair. And that's how we build the muscle. So the muscle is very, very receptive directly after the workout. So that's why timing is very important, and how we spread our protein through the day. If we really want to get the best out of our protein intake and out of this particular product, best to have that product or the sports performance protein directly after the exercise, because that's when your body is, the metabolism is very active, it's boosted, and it's at its maximum. It tends to taper off over the 24 hours thereafter, but you've still got increased metabolism after your exercise. So that's what you want to take advantage of. So you get maximum benefit if you've been doing particularly resistance training, if you take this protein product directly after the exercise. So within about an hour. You don't want to wait. If you wait 3 hours before you have the product, you're not going to get the benefit. Some of that metabolic boost has actually been lost. Also, an interesting thing that's been found is that although we talked about all these concentrations and how many grams of protein is in any portion, it's important to actually distribute the protein evenly throughout the day. And by that, I mean, let's just say, for example, someone needed 90 grams of protein. The body doesn't benefit as well, and the muscle synthesis isn't as optimal if we have a whole lot of it, let's say the 60 grams with our dinner or directly after the exercise, and then dribble the other bits, the other 30 grams through the day. It's preferable to take that 90 grams and split it 30, 30, 30, or 20 and then a snack, and then 20 and then a snack, and perhaps the other 20 with another snack, so that you make up your 90, but you've spread it through the day. It seems like you get better muscle synthesis, and that's not just NeoLife talking, that's actual research that's out there. So that's why we're putting that information and making it available to you so that you can actually be informed and tell people to do that. So timing is important. One can use the product prior to the exercise because you want the energy. Remember, of course, let's say you're going to spend an hour in the gym. That product is still digesting, is still available even after you've exercised, but very, very powerful if you are doing a resistance training and you use it directly after the gym event. And nevertheless, you've got your 26 grams in your shake. But remember, you can spread throughout the day. Spread your protein, it's going to be much more effective for your muscle synthesis. And it should be at least 20 grams of protein in each meal. So what did we say this product was? 26 grams. So it fits that profile perfectly. So this is what I think you should be familiar with if you are working in this particular market. Another thing, of course, it never stops. We really give you all the tools and you can go out there and help people and know that you're providing them with an excellent product, because for sports people, particularly those, well, anybody for that matter, but someone who's in a competitive sport or a team sport or competing internationally even, needs to know that there's nothing dangerous or no stimulants in there that they shouldn't be having. They are very, very particular, and understandably so. They're not going to put their reputation on the line, and we are not going to do that to them either. So we have a letter that we put out if people want some sort of certification or guarantee from the company that we say there's nothing potentially dangerous in the product at all. There's nothing artificial in the product. So there again, so nothing artificial in terms of these stimulants or things that you wouldn't, everything that's on the label is in the product, and everything that's in the product is on the label. And nothing artificial in terms of colors, flavors, sweeteners, or preservatives, which, as I say, in this day and age is unique. And then we also, as I say, guarantee it to be free of any substance. It's currently banned by all those different organizations. And the World Anti-Doping Agency, anything that's on their list, we can actually say that none of those ingredients are in our product at all. So I think that's why we call it our promise. And I think you can be really proud of that, and you can go out there and recommend it to people. And of course, we never use any genetically modified ingredients. And our philosophy is that we look at food from nature's point of view, how's nature delivered it, and we then attempt to bring that back into a product, simply in a different form. So this is a powdered form of a high quality protein that we would want to eat out there, but isn't always practical to do, especially a sports person, and not always practical to find. So this is just to give you some idea of some of the people, and we've got many people, sports people, high profile sports people. You can see them, Springbok colors, Springbok rugby players. Bongi has been taking NeoLife for many years. And can you see there, they're just sending us, these are their little social media posts. And they're taking a variety of different products. And you see a NeoLife shake actually there. So they use that for their day-to-day use because they love it. And then they use the sports performance protein specifically after, let's say, a gym event or after their actual event. So they found ways of actually mixing it into their blend there. But they have a variety of different products that they take. Sia Kolisi, well, he's the captain, or was the captain of the Springbok rugby team, an active sports person now. There he's, there again, there's a set of products, and he's also, remember, these products are suitable for our children. I think the Nutrishake would be there, even the NeoLife shake. A little one like that wouldn't necessarily need the sports performance protein, but certainly they would need many of the other nutrients. So just to show you that people are using the product and proud to share it with people out there. A different sport, for example, these swimmers, these two brothers, and they're very accomplished swimmers. We got a testimony from Chris. Actually, he was just mentioning, he actually wanted to share it with us, and I just want to read you what he actually said. He said, one of my favorite products from NeoLife is the sports performance protein shake. After 5 hours of training, my body thanks me for refueling it with world-class nutrition. I've never felt so fresh the next day after taking it the night before. It's a product I trust and something I can't live without. And the taste is also 10 out of 10. And I'll agree with you, Chris, it is delicious. It mixes up with milk, and the more you blend it, the frothier it gets. It's very nice. All of these shakes are actually very nice when they're prepared chilled. And it really is delicious. I like frothing it even more because then I get more product. We actually get more volume out of the product. So he's absolutely right. It's 10 out of 10, the actual taste. And that's also a big selling point, because I can tell you what, a lot of people, just because they want protein, and I mean, some of these guys really get quite overboard. They'll rather put their hand over their nose, or they pinch their nose together and swallow something that might be quite revolting just because they think they're getting good quality protein. And here you've got all those trimmings that I showed you, and with a guarantee that it's got nothing you wouldn't want to have in your body, and it tastes delicious. I mean, it really is a winner. What I also want to point out is that we don't pay anybody to use our products. Now, we have many, many more sports people than I'm just showing you, but I just wanted to give you some sort of sense of the fact that people out there in a very competitive sport, and where they would be required to have tests to make sure that they don't have banned substances, the fact that they were winners, for example, they are actually prepared to use the product, and they're just talking about it, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay, so in terms of the, if we're comparing the performance protein with the NeoLife shake, again, I'm just giving you some pointers so that you get a sense of which one should I take, because you saw from some of those sports people, they were taking both. So your performance shake is going to be more an energy provider, muscle repairer, and recovery. It's focusing on building and recovery and ensuring that you're up and about for the next event. NeoLife shake will give you that protein. Of course it will, because it's giving you the 22 amino acids, but it isn't giving you quite the concentration of some of the specifics that a sports person might be looking for. But for daily nutrition, excellent blend. It's got those 25 different vitamins and minerals. and the fiber and all the things that a meal would provide. So very great for, if you're on the run, or even a sports person might be traveling. And also they go to different countries when the lockdown is finally over, but they're in all different corners of the world and eating things they're not familiar with or don't always have time, and the time changes. Something like NeoLife Shake is really, really useful. You mix it up with water and you can have it anywhere and it becomes your meal if you aren't able to access food at that particular time. Because it's a complete meal, it can be a meal replacement if someone's on a weight management program. So some of the similarities there are in the serving sizes. We suggest you can have NeoLife Shake with milk if you want to, but if you're on a weight loss program, obviously that's going to add calories. But in terms of the sports person, they're wanting some additional branched chain amino acids that the milk will provide, and of course some of the protein that the milk will also add. Now, just as you see there, we've not used any soya protein in the sports performance product because we wanted to get what the dairy source would give us in terms of the whey protein. So that's why we've specifically concentrated on dairy for this particular product. The NeoLife Shake has got a blend of the different ones. So that's something that's a distinction. And you'll see that the concentrations are shifted slightly because we're focusing on the whey protein and the branched chain amino acids for the sports person. So the protein amounts are slightly different. The amino acid quality is still the same. And there you'll see that your branched chain amino acids, we've actually given you the numbers, are going to be slightly higher than they would be in the NeoLife Shake if you're taking the NeoLife Shake with water. And again, the glutamine and glutamic acid, we want it to be slightly elevated because remember that's part of the immune system. And we want to make sure that that body is working well, but it's also up and ready for the next day's training or event. So those are some of the basic differences, and you can put those together yourself, and they're quite easy to see when you do it like this. The fiber content, we've retained the 5 grams because it's important for general well-being, and as I said, it's also got value in terms of cholesterol, in terms of regulating the glycemic response, which is what a sports person would want to know that they have. It's only one flavor, as you can see, but it is delicious. And you have a choice with NeoLife Shake, which also what makes it rather nice, because there's variety. If you're going to have it as a sort of a meal each and every other day, then at least you've got some variety in terms of flavors. Vitamins and minerals, it's also, so this, your performance shake has really got everything you need from a nutritional point of view, from a sporting point of view, as well as from a health point of view. And then we've, again, because this is a more modern product yet again, we're constantly changing and improving certain things. So we've changed our sweetening system. So it's only got natural sweeteners in it. And the sweetening flavor of there is from the honey and the grape juice and from the sugars that you'll find in rice. And stevia, of course, is a natural sweetening plant. In our NeoLife Shake, we've used the stevia and in the fructose. And there, again, fructose is not a high amount of sugar, but remember, fructose is what you get from fruit. So this is even less than you would find in a normal portion of fruit, because some people seem to have a thing about fructose. We put it in there because fructose controls our sugar levels. So it actually helps to enhance the glycemic response control. And those are things that are very important in the disease profiles that we're seeing out there. And then we've got the natural sugars that the 6 grams, for example, in the performance protein is actually coming from the sweetening. Honey and the grape juice and the rice juice actually provides the sugar. So, sugars is a collective term. It's not a bad word. You get sugars in milk, you get sugars in fruit, you get sugars in rice, you get natural sugars. So it's just, we have to, as a labeling requirement, collectively term it sugar, but it doesn't mean it's that white sugar on the table that you stick in your teeth. It's not sucrose, it's not granulated sugar. It's a combination of naturally occurring carbohydrates in our foods. Some of them are termed sugars. And then we've got slightly more from the fructose and the stevia in the NeoLife Shake. So that's just to give you some sort of difference there. All right, now this looks busy, but I'm just showing you, if you wanted to go out and compare products, and I haven't put the competitors' names in there because we're not really allowed to do that. But yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole slide, but if you just look through, again, what I've done is simply got a template of the features and benefits and all the things that the protein powder has got, the sports performance protein has got to offer, and then compared it with what's on the market. And you'll see there are automatically some question marks that come in. I mean, there's a sporting product, and if you look at this, the one there, for example, the question mark, they don't even tell you how many branched chain amino acids. That's the question people ask. So we are right up there with the branched chain amino acids. In fact, we're the highest of that, group of products, 5 or 6 products that we've put out there. These are products that are just on the shelves out there that people are looking for. And remember, sporting people and certainly gym goers are asking you about branched chain amino acids. And we score very, very well there. The leucine is the one that's more specifically what people are interested in. So again, we're up there at the top. The glutamine, many of them are introducing it, but some of them with a question mark haven't made mention of it. So these gaps are just showing themselves. There's nothing fancy about working out this table. It's literally looking for the features that we have to offer, and does the other product have to offer it. The ProteGuard technology, none of them talk about the fact that they actually make an effort to ensure that the quality of the amino acids are high and that they control the temperature when they're working with it. That's what our ProteGuard means. Question mark for all of them. Varying amounts of carbohydrates. I want to just point out that people think, oh, I don't want sugars, I don't want carbohydrate. A lot of the guys, and even the women who are especially doing bodybuilding, they've only focused on protein. Well, I think they need to realize that the protein won't get into that cell if it hasn't got carbohydrates present as well. And the body needs energy in order to be able to build that muscle in any case. And you know what happens if we don't have enough carbohydrate and we eat only protein because that's what we think we need? Where's the body going to get energy from? What it's going to do is going to use some of that very protein, break it down, make it into glucose, and give you energy with that. So it's actually a total waste to buy a product that doesn't have adequate amounts of carbohydrate, because you're simply not going to get the benefit. And then the fats are present. We don't have much in the way of fats, but it is present there. And then just to show you here, for example, vitamins and minerals, we've got 25. Some of them have none, some have 1 or 2. Fiber, we're sticking to a nutritionally balanced product here, as well as all the benefits to a sports person, not just focusing, as I say, on 1 or 2 ingredients. Ours are sweetened, yes, but it's got natural sweeteners, and many of them have got artificial sweeteners. Some don't tell you whether they've got gluten, and some, again, there's a sort of contains wheat flour. They're not actually telling you it's got gluten, but you can apply that. Artificial colors, some of them don't mention it, so you have to wonder. And some don't have artificial colors, then they tell you because they're proud of it. None of them, other than ourselves, have mentioned that we don't have any preservatives. And we, as I showed you earlier, will state that there's nothing in there that the World Anti-Doping Authorities or agencies don't accept. But none of the others have mentioned that. So there's a question mark. So this actually looks more complicated than it is, but we had our product, looked at others, and a lot of this was not even done by going to the shops. You can actually get this online, and you can start to create the gaps and start to show people what you have to offer. Now, put the price in just to show you that you get what you pay for, basically. But also, someone is prepared to put their hand in their pocket and take out 1,600 Rand to pay for a product that they think is going to increase their performance or their muscle size or whatever. And in fact, the product isn't really that fancy in any case, but they're prepared to spend that. But when you're prepared to spend, 300 Rand or 200 Rand, well, then you get no vitamins and minerals, and you get artificial sweeteners, and you get question marks in the product as well. So this is purely just to give you some sense of what is on the marketplace, how to go out and assess it. And even if someone brings you a container now, you can actually say, well, leave it with me and I'll go through it. And so we're not, we're not poking holes in their products. We're simply showing you what their product has, and this is what we have. And I hope that that's something that you'll be able to do for yourselves, which will enable you to actually enable people to enjoy a really good quality product. So that's me. I hope that it's some way sort of showing you some of the differences, some of the similarities, who would use the products, but actually whether the fact that Force Performance Protein is a very new product in this time of our knowledge and skill and understanding of science. Nutrishake, which is something that came out quite a few years before that, Nutrishake was well ahead of its time, given all the quality of the protein and the glycemic control. And NeoLife Shake was just in addition to that, with a whole lot more bells and whistles. And then we've really gone to town on our Sports Performance Protein. So you have a huge variety of things, different amounts of protein, and all of it's got quality that you can go out and share with your customers. So I hope you've learned something from that and that you will be able to go out and compare yourself if you feel you need to with other people. But in fact, I think I've shown you what it is you have on hand, but you don't have to worry about the others out there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Wow. Liz, that was the most complete protein training I have ever been a part of. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm traveling at the moment, and right next to me, I have my shake, I have my shaker. And I know this product, just from a story point of view, I lost 8 to 10 kilograms 6 years ago on this NeoLife shake. And I don't take it to lose weight, but this is my breakfast every morning because it makes me feel so good. I can have a shake for breakfast, and I know it will get me to lunchtime and beyond if necessary. So Liz, thank you. And to all of our distributors, thank you for joining us tonight. You know, there's a reason why the protein market is so competitive, where, you know, all the supermarkets, all the shops are selling protein because people are looking for a good protein. And so I really believe that Liz has equipped us. I learned so much. Liz has equipped us with information that can help us go out and share it with other people, and people who are using other proteins, get them onto your protein. People who aren't using proteins, help them understand why they need protein, not just from a sports perspective, but just from a general healthy living perspective. So Liz, thank you so much. To all of you, I will get this recording out to you on your WhatsApp groups. Please share it with your team. This protein is an important part of our nutrition range, and I believe we can go out there and we can add value with this product and with this new knowledge. So Liz, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and God bless to every one of you on the call tonight. Have a great week. Good night.